the Edmonton power play is head and shoulders above any other unit in this series, the best. Again, McDavid, Draisaitl, all the names we rattled off. But we're in the Stanley Cup final. And I'm not going to say whistles will be totally swallowed, but you're going to have to do a little bit more than you would, like it or not. Like, this is the NHL, and it's the way it works. Like it or not, you're going to have to do a little bit, no, probably a lot more than you would have to do in the regular season to draw a penalty. And so if they play more of this series at 5-on-5, then Edmonton is comfortable playing. It's another advantage for Florida. So we take a deeper roster who can play more, can play more of an advantage at 5-on-5. We've also, by the way, got the better goaltender. Sergei Bobrovsky is having another great postseason, which I don't think anybody could have seen coming. I mean, maybe you thought, okay, playoff Bob has fluttered off into the back of our imaginations and isn't really a thing anymore, but you wanted to see him actually put a concrete proof to that abstract thought, and he has this postseason. Clear goaltending advantage because Stuart Skinner, until the last round, I mean, this is a guy that got benched this postseason. All those advantages are swinging Florida's way. And the only way this swings in Edmonton's direction, I think, is if they do decide to call this series almost like they would call a regular season game, right? Like, oh, yeah, sorry, that's technically a penalty. Got to call it, kids. And Edmonton gets 3 and 4 power play opportunities a game, in which case this opens up and doesn't look like the NHL playoffs anymore. It would be breaking precedent, though, Joe, for them to call it completely differently than they've called every other postseason series for, I don't know, the last 50 years.
Yeah. Conn Smythe. I wish it was a market of McDavid wins the Conn Smythe, but Florida wins it.
Oh,
I know it's a remote possibility. Maybe it is out there, and I just haven't seen it. That's interesting. We've talked about the Florida side. So we both like Florida, right?
yes.
We're both there. Okay. But the Conn Smythe is wide open. We believe there's value in Tkachuk when you look at him leading his team in scoring, 19 points before you get to Barkov, and Verhaeghe was 17, leader of the team and all that. And you could still get that 5.5, 6 to 1. Yeah, 6 to 1 I still see out there for Tkachuk, fourth favorite. A name that you mentioned a few moments ago that I want to go back to.
Yeah.
Do you agree with the idea that if it's the Panthers, if it's a Panther, it's wide open?
Yes, because if Bobrovsky has a shutout or two in the series, he's the clear favorite. If Barkov has a big game or two, he's the captain. He's the favorite. Tkachuk is right there as well, emotional leader of the team and all that. Yeah, wide open. Verhaeghe's still an outside shot as well.
Okay, this name obviously not one of the more likely winners if the Panthers win the Cup. But just talking to someone threw this out to me. He's like, look, probably not going to win it, but look at the odds, and he's been their best player. Sam Bennett.
Yeah, 250.
300 to 1, I see.
Yeah.
I mean, just
so
yes, a remote possibility. A remote possibility. Understood. But at 300 to 1, don't you have to put something on him?
I think you have to think about it because it plays into the narrative that I just spun a little bit there about this being a 5-on-5 series, about it getting grimy and gritty and ugly like every other postseason series in the Stanley Cup playoffs has been for the last, I said 50 years, since hockey existed. Sam Bennett is that guy that gets under the other team's skin, right? And you want number 2 as far as emotional leaders go in that locker room. It's Bennett right behind Tkachuk probably. And that's the guy that can come up big. You know, he only has to score, a couple goals in the series. But if they're of great impact, this guy gets a game winner in a third period or in overtime and just generally creates chaos and havoc when Draisaitl and McDavid are on the ice and does a good job shutting them down if he's given that assignment. Like that could be what tips it in his direction. And with the number, like you said, at 300, anywhere between 250 and 300 to 1, yeah, I definitely think that's worth a look. The finals last night, Joe. Good Lord. That felt over by the end of the first quarter, and it
Yeah.
effectively was over by the end of the first quarter. And if you're one of those people that thought, oh, well, the Celtics have kind of coasted through this thing, and Luka and the Mavs are hot, you never know. I might be pointing to myself right now for those watching the show. You got shown the door very early last night. That was emphatic.
Porzingis MVP live, 50-1.
It's down to
Yeah.
7-1 now. Is that what it is?
I see plus 550 after that one game. I mean, that's why you got the 50-1. We talked about that for the last, 20 days while we were waiting for the NBA finals to get going. That's the risk you take. But it felt like he was just about ready at the end of the Eastern Conference Finals, which was a long time ago, and there were no concerns on him, right? He was not worried. He was going 100% the entire time, and he was only out there 21 minutes in the game. And look at the
Yeah.
impact that he made coming off the bench. I wonder if that continues. I mean, it obviously worked out great for them, but now there are no more surprises moving forward. Porzingis is ready to roll 100%. NBA Finals, we're going to get a couple days, most scenarios of rest there, but that was truly remarkable what he was able to do. Even if you knew that he was 100%, I don't know that you expected him to come off the bench and have that sort of impact in that game. But yeah, I mean, it was comfortable throughout. Late second half, there was a point when it got to single digits and Lucas staring down the crowd. But no, I think we all knew. Okay, you got
That
it
was
down to 8.
not.
Congratulations. No, there was no. It wasn't a real run because they were up by, they got up to 29 at one
Yeah.
point. Boston did.
And that was not that Luka stare at the crowd was not what we've seen from Luka this postseason, where he's telling guys you can't guard me, things like that. He wasn't really in it last night. He was. I
Sure.
know he had 30 points, he had 10 boards, but some of the shots he was missing, especially early. He comes off the floor towards the end of the first quarter, kind of taps out, and that's when Porzingis goes off. You could tell he was working harder on the defensive end of the floor than he's worked the entire postseason. I think that may have affected him on the offensive end of the floor, and the Celtics took advantage of it. They've now got 7 15-point or more wins in a single postseason, which is the most in their franchise history, the Celtics. Something to say for a franchise that has the kind of NBA playoff history they do have. And while you look at it and say, oh, that's great, Doncic had 30 and the rest of the starters only had 39 and he shot 46%. I don't know how much of it really meant anything, Joe. Like I said, this was not what we expected from Doncic coming into this series. At least I didn't.
Dallas won the third quarter and the fourth quarter. Did it really matter?
No.
At that point, it was almost ball game. You said you didn't get the Luka that you were expecting. True. Did you get the effort from anybody wearing a Mavericks jersey yesterday?
The rest of the team looked lost. Like Kyrie looked
Completely.
lost. Gafford and Lively were nowhere to be seen. They might as well be on the back of a
Impact.
milk carton.
Yep.
They all looked like they hadn't been there before, because they haven't. I get it. Other than Kyrie, but they looked like they were not ready for the moment. And you just had a week to get ready for this thing, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to put it on Jason Kidd, but a coach who's been there before, maybe he tried his damnedest for the last 6 days, or the 6 days between the conference finals and the NBA finals. Maybe he tried his damnedest to impress upon his guys that, hey, this is just another basketball game. Let's just go out there and have fun. I saw some of the stuff he said at halftime, for example. But whatever he did during those 6 days, or whatever they did, it did not prepare them for game one last night. They looked completely and totally taken over by the moment.
Maybe the most impressive Celtic was actually Jaylen Brown.
Yep.
With what he was doing. Just in every aspect of the game, the turnovers, the dunks, scoring, leading the way for them. So, man, are we overlooking him? It feels like we're always overlooking him.
Always. He's down to 3-1 for MVP now, which isn't surprising at all. Better number than Luka right now at 325. Again, not surprising. Tatum, for what it's worth, just kind of there. I think, we might be watching it happen in these playoffs, Joe, that this is becoming Jaylen Brown's team more than Jason Tatum's team.
Really?
And that, yeah, I mean, he shows up in the big moment. Do you ever question whether Jaylen Brown is going to show up in a big moment if given the opportunity? I don't. I question whether Jason Tatum is going to show up in the big in a big moment when given the opportunity.
Yeah, we're never having that conversation. Now, he doesn't have the same attention, the same spotlight on him, but we're constantly having that Tatum conversation. Well, is he going to
Mm-hmm.
stumble? Is he going to show up for every game? Oh, you see, Tatum didn't do anything here. I don't think we ever say that about Brown, but the expectation also is not as high. Yeah, Brown points is 23 and a half. He scored 22 last night. So they're bumping that up a little bit. Tatum's is 26 and a half. Brown had a lot of rebounding chances. He grabbed 6 last night, but he had 13 rebounding chances. So it wouldn't
Mm.
surprise me if the next game he goes over that number once again. It's sitting at 5.5.
He's actually gone under his points prop now in 3 in a row and 5 of the last 6 for what it's worth. So again,
Yeah.
if you expect a Dallas bounce back and maybe an off night for Jaylen Brown, or it doesn't even have to be an off night for Jaylen Brown. And sometimes I think his points prop just gets lined a little too high because, again, it's the sort of the crowd that aligns itself with the narrative I'm spinning here. The anti-Tatum crowd ends up wanting
Mhm.
to bet Jaylen Brown, and it brings the number up a little bit, I think. But yeah, so 5 of the last 6, he has been under his points prop. And if you think Dallas is going to bounce back, then maybe Jaylen Brown doesn't have a game either.